Is this the hockey? Yes, it is. Hello and welcome to Surviving Classical Music. It's our first live stream for quite a long time. I mean, if you discount our last week's test run. Grace is with me. She's just about to be here in a second. I hope that you're all doing well. And today, Grace and I are going to be talking about, well, what it's been like for the last year, when everything happened to us, how we've dealt with it, and so on, what's been going on. And if you're watching along with us live, please do give us a comment. Tell us where you are, what's going on. If you want to interject, I've got the latency very low so that we can pretty much see your comments as you write them, pretty much. Feel free to write a question or chat along, and we'll be there. So in any case, here comes Grace. Hello, Grace.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Enjoying a good cup of tea.
Good.
Finally found a plant milk that doesn't look terrible in cups of tea. So this is like life-changing
What
for me.
kind of plant milk?
This one specifically, like, I'm going to do an advert now.
Uh-oh.
They're not paying me.
Uh-oh.
This one is the new vegan brand at Migros. It's an oat milk, and it actually works. I don't know if you can see. I can't show you the color of my tea without spilling it everywhere.
Oh, right.
Look, it almost looks like normal tea.
Almost.
You can't see anything.
So
I promise it. I promise it does.
does it normally like bunch up into little?
Yeah, it doesn't curdle. It doesn't. There's those. This isn't anything to do with music. I'm already hijacking the podcast. I'm sorry. But anyone who's tried plant milk in tea knows that most of them, you have to pour in more than the tea itself in order to start to change the color or the texture or anything.
Yeah.
This one's quite successful, so can highly recommend for those of you who like that kind of thing.
Yeah, but who wants to have like a half and half tea and milk combo?
Yeah, it just makes it cold. It's been the bane of my life. But yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, you can see how exciting our lives are now. That's the biggest thing on my mind today.
I know the world is changing because very often, often when I order a coffee, but I don't order a coffee very often. When I order one from the barista or whoever, I have to say cow milk. I can't just say milk.
Oh, see, that makes me happy
The
now,
world is
Andrew.
changing.
You obviously go to some good, high quality hipster coffee places.
Well, the only one that's open that you can go to regularly outside is the truck on the Rhine by Wettsteinbrücke.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're open all the time. I mean, even in the worst of it, they were open.
Because they're just an outdoor establishment, as it
Exactly.
were.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
So
That's
they're
nice.
quite strict on saying cow's milk.
Uh-huh. Anyway, on to musical things or, life things in general.
Yeah.
How are you? How's it been going? What have you been up to?
It's fine. I've been very,
That
very
wasn't
busy.
convincing.
No, it's one of those things where as what we're doing is just one of the plates that we're spinning, and this project can be a lot, but it's also a volunteer thing. And I started like 4 of those things in the beginning of the pandemic. So like I have this Patreon like studio, which is not like a profit generating, let's call it that. Like it kind of pays the hours that I put into it at a very basic level. But it's all sorts of information that people wouldn't be able to get otherwise. And then I have also the reed making business, which I've been doing a lot of live streaming on the reed making business, like almost one a week. I didn't do one last week, and I didn't do one at Christmas, but you get the idea. And that's a lot of work, because
That
you always
sounds
have
like
to know what you're going to do.
if it's even at a maintenance level, though, you're already doing way better than most people who are sort of, putting stuff out online and doing these volunteer projects. So I think you can be very proud
Yes.
of that and spinning all those plates.
Yeah.
That sounds incredible.
Well, it
Yeah.
certainly raised my bassoon reed making business from the dead. Like in the summer, it was like, that's it. I guess,
Really.
Yeah, I mean, in the summer we didn't. I think probably most of us thought we were ambitious that in the fall we might have music, but we weren't
Hmm.
ambitious that in the winter we would. And so, and in North America, like basically at the time, everything was shut down, and there wasn't this hope that in the fall we might have a chance, you know. So a lot of my customers were like just holding down, you know, like just
But
using.
surely for reads, people are still practicing, aren't they? Or do you think generally people are just playing less and they're ordering less?
Well,
They still need a
I
read.
gained some amateur players who were practicing at home, but I think there's only so much you can do just kind of at home as a bassoonist. You know, there's not an unlimited amount of repertoire that you can just dive into, like the Bach cello suites or something. You know, like
Uh-huh.
as a violinist. So I think that was part of the decline as well. But once I started doing the live streams, then and I think people's how do you say like people got used to the new normal, quote unquote, and so that things started to come back. But certainly, I gained way more traction in terms of marketing just by doing stuff which was pretty well produced for a bassoon reed making live stream. You know, in the
Yeah.
beginning it looked pretty rough and was pretty bad. Most of the time was like our live streams actually. You know,
Rough.
can you hear me? Hello? I'm not a cat. I'm not a cat.
Well, every time that your stream has popped up on my page, it's looked really professional. It looks really good. You've got
Now it
different
does.
angles. You've got that like handiwork angle going on.
Oh yeah, baby.
Working it, Andrew.
Well, that's the one drawback about Facebook Live versus YouTube, which is also partly why we're on YouTube now, is that at YouTube you can stream at 1080 pixels, you know, so 1920 by 1080. So you get way more detail than is it 1280 by 720, which is the Facebook Live version. And I'm
I'll nod
just
and smile.
okay. So in any case, it's less good the quality on Facebook Live.
Yeah,
But
okay.
if you're doing reed making stuff off it, like most of the time it's okay. But there are sometimes you want to show a small detail and you just can't. You can't show it, or it's just not visible enough. But the problem is that if I said I'm going to YouTube now, like 5 people would follow, and something with the Facebook, one of the problems and the benefits is that people drop in for only a few seconds, but they see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas on YouTube, you kind of have to know in advance, and
I feel like people who follow a channel on YouTube are more committed to that. Like they're going to sit and watch something.
mhm,
YouTube, I don't use YouTube actually, but I know people who do, and they make a decision to chill out, spend, they've got half an hour free, even if they're doing something else in the background, and they'll stick with it. Whereas Facebook is really just a sort of infinite scroll
mhm,
thing, isn't it? You see 5 seconds of one thing and then you're on to the next.
yep,
So it's probably good for attracting attention, but not maintaining it, not retaining it.
yes,
So yeah, it's good to have a bit of both, I'd imagine. Put
yeah,
some light stuff on Facebook, really short things,
hmm
and some live things occasionally, and then put your real content on YouTube.
which is what you did actually with the most recent rerun vlog.
Yeah, this is really interesting for me to do. I'm just messing around with, just experimenting with things really, but I've done two little amateurish videos to talk about the concerts for the Re-Renaissance series in Basel, which is a lot of fun. And did the last one with Mark Levon as well. And yeah, we posted actually yesterday, I think it was posted, the tour of the Basel paper mill we did, which was fantastic, little teaser for the concert. But for all of this, we had to decide. We had so much material. It was like, how much do I cut out? Do we put it on Facebook or YouTube? All of these things. And we decided on the full length version, which is still only about 11 minutes or so for YouTube,
Hmm
for people who follow the channel and they wait for new content. And then just a really short 5 minutes or so teaser for Facebook, because you just can't expect to keep someone on a video for 11 minutes on Facebook. I mean, that's not going to happen.
hmm
I wouldn't do that if I
hmm
were browsing Facebook. So it is interesting to see how you've got to think about the audience on the different platforms. And
Yeah,
we used the same material for both, but we presented it in a different way.
right.
Um, yeah. it's a learning curve.
Well, I mean, you guys are learning fast, right? This is only the third vlog that's been done for Ray Ren, right?
Yeah.
And it's your second, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
one that you did, your first one, the second one, that was just
Yes.
you. That's
That
right?
was just me. Yeah. And it was very short.
But it was a kind of YouTube style thing, right? And you
I
had your
guess
phone
so.
downtown, some
Yeah,
shit.
I guess so. But that's I didn't think of it specifically that way, but I think that's the only thing that I know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of naturally what it ended up as. Yeah, I don't know why though, because I don't actually watch YouTube videos, but for some reason I know why it is. I don't go on YouTube, but Facebook feeds me snippets of YouTube creators on Facebook Watch
Mm-hmm.
and gets me hooked in.
Right.
So I think that's probably where I picked that sort of video style up from. It's not a conscious imitation, but I guess that's why
Mm-hmm.
I think of a video as being put together that way. Yeah.
And this is now, I mean, these are your first, what I see is your first sort of, we're publishing these with a sort of, like, these will exist for some time. It's not just for my friends, sort of, I'm going to make a YouTube video sort of idea. And I mean, it's not for you per se, but it's for Ray Ren.
Yeah.
But these are your first kind of attempts at this.
Yeah, I've never done that before. So it's fun, but it's very time consuming for me.
Mm.
Also because I don't know the programs very much, I had to play with OBS, which I think is what you use for your streams. It's what everyone uses,
Yep.
I guess,
Yep.
for streaming. I don't really know my way around it, but I had to work out a basic way of presenting me and Mark in an interview, the
Mm-hmm.
Zoom call format. And then I was using Final Cut Pro, which is on my laptop,
Mm-hmm.
to try and cut it all together. I am so slow at doing. I think a professional watching me they'd have a panic attack watching me use this program, and the amount of tiny cuts that are in my final result and everything. I'm
Right.
sure there's better ways to do it, but you got to start somewhere, and it's really fun to learn it actually.
Mm.
And realizing that I can do it to some level, even if I'm just messing around at the moment, it does make me want to just try it out, like do some singing videos, like just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everyone says just for fun, don't they? But I think we all do want to be putting something out there at the moment. I've got no concert, so well, I've got a couple, if I'm lucky, if they don't get cancelled again. But we want to be doing something, and it's not a bad thing to be doing
Mm-hmm.
this kind of learning process.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll stick with it for a little bit. I guess the Re-Renaissance team will want a vlog every month. It won't necessarily always be with me, but if they want another one with me in it, then I'll try it again and just get better, I hope.
Right.
But you seem to be really on top of it now.
Yeah, I've become much more of a media producer than I thought I would ever be. I
Uh-huh.
think I did 10 YouTube videos from the summer, 10 weeks in a row, and it became too much to balance. Like as I said at the beginning, plates, spinning plates, it's just too much. One of the plates fell off
Uh-huh.
and broke on the floor, but the thing is it did solve like it had a purpose, and it established me within a group of bassoonists who now can look to me and think I'm somebody who exists, rather than somebody who's a Facebook profile photo with a Baroque bassoon. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I developed some kind of a following, but I also did some things that I just wanted to do. I wouldn't say that any of the videos, except for maybe 3 of them, are well done. Like they are all me trying to, like, content wise, I know I've done something well. But in terms of the presentation, there was always something technically that doesn't look quite right. Either the colors are not right, or you can only hear out of the left ear, and that happens a few times actually. And stuff like that, like, so I'm learning as I'm going, but all of it, I entertain myself during a time where I had very little to do. So I'm quite
And I think people are very forgiving of a few technical difficulties. I think if the content is good and they like the personality, they're not going to mind if something goes wrong. They're going to, everyone understands that.
exactly. So I'm quite happy that I did it, and I will certainly release more as time goes on, but I won't be doing it on the kind of one weekly schedule that I had hoped that I could, because it's really like a whole day of work.
Yeah.
Um,
But that is also the blessing of having the courage to do live videos. If you do a live stream, whether it's you practicing or teaching a lesson, if a student would agree to that, whatever it is, you can do a live stream that then comes offline,
mhm,
but you can just cut it up. You don't have to make too many decisions about what to pull in here. Keep it simple.
mhm. Yeah, I certainly
But
had that feeling with once I started getting kind of good at the live streaming. I started inserting. I came up with this system, which is, I mean, there's. If you really want to learn about live streaming, you should watch YouTube accounts talking about streaming games, because they're trying to make basically, like everybody who's a streaming gamer, they're all incredible game players. They're all playing at the best, at the highest level. But people don't watch the stream to watch someone just own a game. That they're watching
mhm,
because it's entertaining, and
mhm.
so there's all sorts of like 3D effects that they pull in, or instant replay, or what if my person chats this word and then hearts pop up on the stream, this sort of thing. And so I started watching these guys and have built in a system to the read making streams. Unfortunately, it's not set up onto this stream itself, but you can make you can set up voice commands. So I can say something like roll the intro video, and then a video will actually play over it, or I'll say yeah, the reed cracked, and then a piece of text will fly in front of the screen. It'll go crack, and then you'll hear the orchestra go bam. So it really is quite exciting technology in a way, but the
Yeah.
comedy to it is that the microphone doesn't always recognize the command, and so you have
Uh-huh.
me like saying it cracked, it cracked. It cracked. Bam! Oh, you know. So that's entertainment on there. But in terms of cutting, the thing is that it kind of loses the sparkle of it if you're in my case, if you're cutting it up to make a tighter YouTube video. Mainly because the chat is on the screen as well. So if you comment,
hmm
the comment will appear on the video itself, and that
hmm
sort of thing, it becomes difficult to cut up for
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
But yeah, but you're right. I mean, so in if you're, like you say, teaching a lesson or something, and there are some really important points that are said, um, cutting it up later for YouTube is a fantastic.
This is actually something that I mean, because I've been talking for months, like, oh, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. Of course, I have not. I know my own personality. I think of something, and 3 years later, maybe I'll take step one.
Mhm,
But one thing that I wanted to do, if this hypothetical channel ever starts, is to offer lessons to people at a reduced price because my prices are very Swiss. I know, I know that most people can't afford it. If they would allow me to use some material to show it's online to show what we worked on and stuff,
mhm,
um, wouldn't necessarily want to put someone under the pressure of having a live singing lesson. That's,
mhm,
if you're brave, let's go for it. But that would be a bit harsh. But to have some options where you don't have to decide on all the material new yourself. It's organic. It's either you practicing and then you don't have to do take after take. It's an honest practice video,
mhm,
which you can put up basically whole. Or a lesson where it's not intended to be perfect. You have to show the work in progress.
mhm,
I think those make for valuable videos where you don't have to create a Hollywood movie out of them.
mhm,
So it's sometimes nice to do that as well. But that could be like a bread and butter if you wanted to do regular, streaming or regular posts, but you don't have the time to do 2 days worth of cool edits
Hmm.
every time.
Yeah.
Something that already has the organic material inherently in it,
Mm.
is how I would like to start, because I know myself and I know that I will get overwhelmed if I try to produce like a cool video every time, you know.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that was one thing I thought I could do, which would be useful to people.
Mm.
Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe everyone's yawning at the very idea.
So let's get into it a little bit about the. We're 1 year on, right? And 1 year later, a year ago we were talking about gigs and problems with gigs and the situation, and now we're talking about what we're going to do on YouTube. We're a year on, and we're like clear the kind of conversation that we're having now without having set a topic is production of
Hmm.
and learning how to do production, audio, video, as a self promotional tool, I suppose. That's kind of what it
As
is.
a Also, just as a job, I mean, the self-promotional tool implies that we're hoping to get concert bookings.
Mm,
I'm not even thinking about that so much anymore.
right.
I'm thinking, how is this going to go forward? Imagine a world where concerts are not the main bread and butter.
Mm,
What is it going to be for me? And for me, it's going to be pedagogy, probably.
mm,
So my idea of having this self-promotional tool isn't necessarily to get bookings as a singer, because that's we don't know when that's going to come back on the regular, but to teach, to expand my teaching horizons, to be able to give like group online masterclasses, or to get students on video at a high quality, where you've really got a setup where you can trust that you can hear their voice, as closely as possible to in being in the room with them.
mm.
That's sort of my intention when I think about setting up online. Not so much self promotion as a performer.
Right.
It's cool too, but don't know how useful it is right now.
But also promotion as a teacher.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how that is. That some suddenly, and this is the subject of. I did a 5 minute monologue for the audio podcast today, which has just been published an hour and a half ago, and that I ask whether a basic level of production skill or production or digital skills, social media, whatever, if that has to become part of the curriculum in a degree program, which is supposed to be a professional degree for music. And I wasn't saying we can have one master class per semester. I was like, you have to have at least 1 hour a week. That it has to, whether or not, I think it's a question of, it's not a question of whether or not the students take it seriously. I think it has to be credited, and it has to appear at least as if the school or conservatory or university recognizes that the reality is different, right? Because you and I,
I
like,
think,
we have to do this now.
well, I think it's very useful. I know that some people would feel spiky about that appearing on the curriculum.
Mm.
They would feel that you should be able to be a passionate and technically competent, good musician, and that should be enough. No, I think that would be quite overwhelming for some people to think that they have to suddenly have another plate to spin, which is sort of digital competency. But I think, unfortunately, for those people, we are heading that way.
Yeah.
So I would embrace that if that came into the curriculum.
Yep.
But I think it would be a bit anxiety inducing for some musicians who just want to play. And,
Sure.
who could blame them?
But the
Yeah.
thing is that the musicians at the moment, with some except, I mean, how do I say this? In this city, where until for the most part, caseload has been super low. I mean, obviously we had this wave and we're coming out, but it's coming up again. Who knows? But essentially, we're living in a place which has enough money and which has a sort of performance culture which allows the sort of the Luddite anti-technology, the airheads, whatever, those people who who are like digital. No. I'm just, you know what I mean. That people. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean there are people who who are
Isn't that a
fantastic
bit mean?
performers in the scene, classical music in Switzerland, in especially in Basel, who like things just always work out, but you're not entirely sure if everything is under control. You know, when it
I
comes
see what
to
you mean. Okay, yeah, yeah,
you know like
yeah.
oh I'm sorry, I thought the rehearsal was at 5:30. No, it says in the email 14:30. Oh, I don't
Sort of
know how that
fluffing
happened.
through life.
Yeah, that type of person, that they can exist and they can still exist here. But in a place like the US, where, I mean, even though things are changing now, under like at the middle of January, there was absolutely no way that you could be a freelance musician and still be performing at all. Um, so whereas here that was possible in the middle of the wave. You know, if you were hired, a professional player could play in a live stream, and there
Yeah,
were
yeah.
live streams. We had the money to do that. The many of the ensembles did.
Well,
Um,
if you were lucky, yeah. I think if you're established and you got the funding, at least that was possible for,
yeah,
a lot of people didn't even feel that benefit, I think.
yeah. So I think the thing is that the argument which you were giving, which was, um, shouldn't it be enough that we're just competent musicians? That can still have some weight here, but it can't. It almost has no weight in any other area where either the amount of funding is lower or the caseload is just so much higher. So because in that case, just live music just can't exist
Mm.
temporarily. So yeah, I just so I understand the argument, and I totally understand from the standpoint of institutions which have been doing the same thing forever. You know, for modern all of modern history, but at the same time, suddenly the world has violently changed, right?
Yeah, you've got to roll with it. I
Yeah.
I also agree that I agree that this should be in the curriculum now. But I think it's a similar kind of frustration for some people as, oh, I don't know, wearing a full-length black concert dress for whatever you're singing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do I have to present myself in a certain, my voice isn't going to be different. And I know that this annoys some of my colleagues as well,
Mm-hmm.
that they're expected to turn up in a certain style of clothing that they've bothered to get ironed and starched and paid money for
Right.
when they're going to play the same.
Yeah.
And I've had people say, put a blindfold on the audience, just let them use their ears. So of course, no one thinks the same about all these things, and I think there's always going to be people that want to kick against the
Yeah. Yeah.
digital, transformation.
Yeah.
But if you can harness it, it will do you good.
Yeah.
If it's the kind of thing you can cope with, then run with it
Mm-hmm.
because it's here to stay.
Yeah. I'm just
So
I'm just a
yeah.
bit worried that there are examples, especially close to our circle, of people who will reject anything digital, and yet will go on to have a very successful or comfortable living, successful career, etc., etc. And that puts for the people who are near them, who are looking up to them, puts an unrealistic um, goal into their head, if you know what I mean.
You mean it's possible now, but you don't think it will be possible in 5 years' time or 10 years' time or something?
Yeah, I think the people who, like at the moment, the people who can keep going are people who established themselves before the pandemic. And even I had work this weekend. I had a performance, but that was booked before the pandemic. Like
Mm.
I was already I had been 5 years performing in the scene here. But if you're a student and there's only so many concerts, they're not going to hire. Look at the Abendmusiken, for example. They're getting some fantastic players, not even from the area sometimes. They're getting people from Jeremy Papasergio, for example, fantastic bassoonist. His family is nearby, but he actually lives, somewhere in. I actually don't know where he lives, but he lives in the west, in France somewhere. And he
Uh-huh.
played 2 months ago in the Predigerkirche, but he was free. So fantastic, great performance. Um,
But maybe this local question is something to think about. What about people who they don't necessarily want to do the online promotion to a huge degree? They could still be mix with musicians locally and just get local gigs, no, and not worry too hard about trying to perform in the States or perform with
Mm-hmm.
people that they've never mixed with just by online advertising. If none of us had the internet or like Facebook or whatever, it would be local gigs, wouldn't it? And you can still, as soon as we're allowed to mix physically again and share classes with teachers and students hearing each other, those kinds of word of mouth recommendations will come back in a bit stronger. So that will still be there for people who are terrified by these conversations. I'd say don't panic yet.
Mm-hmm.
If you think local, you're still going to be you're still going to be fine eventually. But it is unfortunate that some of the big stuff seems to go to those who have a very strong online
Mm-hmm.
presence. It's not unfortunate, I shouldn't say it like that. I'm all for it, but it's unfortunate for people who don't want to be heavily online. That there's going to be a little bit of bitterness there, probably a bit of frustration
Mm-hmm.
that they might feel that they play just as well or better, but they can't get their word out there
Mm-hmm.
unless they do all this extra plate spinning.
Yeah. I'm just a bit. The one thing that we don't know yet is we're just getting through the first wave, the first wave of live streamed events. You know, like we had this lockdown here, and a number of the institutions have now been live streaming for what 3 or 4 months. Would you say, like that was their choice? That was the only choice since November, end of November, maybe,
Hmm.
and now they're getting, I know for a fact 2 of them have gotten a taste of what it's like to have people watch from all over the world, you know. And then you have this question of, do we try and make the quality like a CD but in live performance? Like, do we try and make the quality so high so that we can attract thousands to watch, or are we doing something for something that we would put on here and that would be no different, and sometimes it's good and sometimes something happens, whatever, you know, but we trust the people, we trust that things will eventually go back to the way they were, and then we just cancel everything that we've been
Mm.
doing. And I don't, if they get a taste of the big success, I don't know in terms of who they, you know, like how the hiring decisions will be affected if they just continue to go with people who have an established career from the pre-pandemic time, or if it will be possible for people who are only just graduating, just making it out, starting their career, if they could actually get into something like that.
I think probably we're heading towards a long phase where even when live concerts come back in, they will be live streamed at the same time. Because the local audience wants to go to live performances.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loves a live performance, or most people. They like to actually go there, feel the atmosphere, sit in the audience, get that natural sound, direction, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is, connect with the performers. But like you said, people are seeing that live streams actually pull in attention and an online international audience. And I think we're going to see institutions and festivals and ensembles go for the double whammy
Mm-hmm.
and just do both.
Yeah.
Do a genuine live performance, but stream it.
Mm-hmm.
So then we've got to at some point say, is this like, is there going to be a double fee for the fact that your performance is going to be forever published on YouTube
Yeah.
and you've probably got no choice in the matter?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to increase the sort of personal pressure you put on yourself not to make a single slip or to look a certain way, even when you're not singing, when you're sitting on the stage or at the side, is the camera on me? There's going to be all kinds of different, it's going to be a different atmosphere, I think, for performers if they know that they're being streamed. But I think that's probably where we're going.
If you sing for radio, Grace, do you sing differently if you knew it was just a live concert?
You mean live radio?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm way more terrified.
Because I've been in two very how do you say this, like we were under pressure, we were on major radio stations. One of them
Mm.
was like street was played across Europe when we played, and the orchestra, we were on tour, and it was very obvious that we played differently in the radio concerts. That we
Mm,
obviously played every note perfectly, but we lost the greater. No, there were no risks. You know, it was
yeah.
super plain, and I would worry about that if we all knew that it was being streamed and essentially recorded. Um,
But imagine also if you were doing radio performances every day, which not many people are,
yeah.
but like stepping out on a professional stage for the first time. I remember doing the first concert with a medieval ensemble that had booked me professionally after I'd just graduated.
Mm-hmm.
The first professional medieval one. Obviously, I'd done loads as a student where you're not scared at all. um, and that was terrifying. And I put a lot of pressure on myself. And now I'm still, I've talked about my stage fright. I still get really nervous performing, but it's not like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I do have some self-confidence now. And I guess if all of us get used to being streamed all the time, it's going to change our behavior and it is going to change the way we perform and the way we act when we know the cameras are on us.
Yeah.
But I hope that we will get used to it in the same way we get used to any other live performance. It's a bit weird though.
Yeah. I at the moment I've only been for live stream concerts. I've only been behind the camera, so I don't know how
Yeah.
I would react in the opposite way. And if I have been live streaming in front of the camera, it's been this, talking rather than playing. So I have no idea how I would react.
It's not all bad. I've done a few now, and the bad thing is the unknown. You can't see your audience, you get no feedback from them while you're singing, and you don't know how many, millions of people are watching and judging you and and you don't know who's there, who you know and want to impress, or someone who scares you or whatever. All these thoughts run through your mind. But the nice thing about it is that you get feedback on your performance, which is almost invariably friendly and supportive, and people commenting
Mm-hmm.
on how much they're enjoying it.
Right.
You only see it
Mm-hmm.
afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
but if you think about a normal live concert situation, you might get some smiles from the audience, depending on what country you're in, I find. You might get some good feedback, and then you can get that positive sort of to and fro with the audience. You might not.
Mm-hmm.
You might have quite a cold, or there might be lights on you and you can't see. And after the concert, you go off stage and you don't really know if people enjoyed it or not. Whereas with these YouTube live streams, it's been so heartwarming after the concert has finished as a team to see what people said about it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously if there's a problem, they say, oh, the sound's cut out or whatever. But most people are saying, oh, I love it. I'm so happy I can listen from Australia, or,
You're very good with this, Grace, because every stream that I know you've been watching, I see you comment because I'm the one behind the control panel looking at the comments.
aha.
And so when you say like, "Oh, hello," and whatever, this great stream or whatever, I'm like, "Aha, Grace is one of the good ones."
Well, maybe I like to comment on other people's performances because I know how much it means to me when I've seen people commenting on mine,
Mm-hmm.
people that I didn't know were listening while I was singing. And then after the concert, you all say well done to your other performers, and whoever's running the stream says, "Hey, we've got some great feedback. Do you want to hear some of it?"
Mm-hmm.
And it really lifts the mood. It's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not all bad, I think. If people are friendly human beings to each other, which most people like to be,
Mm-hmm.
then you do get some positive sides to this live stream stuff. You can reach people and give them a good afternoon activity while they're stuck at home.
That's definitely one of
So
the side benefits as compared with to radio, right?
that was a good sentence, Andrew. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Radio is that may be partly why it's so scary. You get no feedback. You can't see the audience. You know people are listening.
Mm.
And you know that the standards for radio are stereotypically perfection. I don't hear mistakes when I listen to the radio, so I don't want to make any when I go on the radio.
Mm.
Um, and you don't get the comments and you don't get the audience feedback. So a bit cold maybe, even though people must be enjoying it,
Yeah.
otherwise they wouldn't play it. Yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of that
Yeah,
contact and
I think the one thing that we haven't really attempted as a sort of classical music industry, I hate to use that word, but you as classical music on the whole, with some exceptions, is that we haven't in live streams allowed us to break the fourth wall. So it's as if the audience is still in the position of the audience,
Mhm.
and that the
Yeah,
the performers are performing, but it's still art. It's still something which excludes them. Whereas if you
yeah.
watch the best live streamers in gaming or in pop music, which is a whole thing, well, like we did an episode last week of Danielle Allard. It's half of the show is her talking to the people online.
Yeah.
They're commenting or whatever, and I that's something which we haven't tried because I think there is a certain hesitation to connect if you're performing and you feel vulnerable or whatever, and then you look an audience member in the eyes and you're like, ah, and that that is gone. You can't look an audience member in the eye when you've got a camera, but you also say, hey, look, talk to the camera, and the people are like, uh um uh I am presenting a piece, you know.
Takes some getting used to. But the other benefit of that is if you're streaming from home or from a studio, you have your microphone right there.
Mm.
I know for me personally, I love to talk to the audience if the atmosphere is right in a live concert. But it requires, for example, a tiny medieval festival where you have less than 100 people in a little chapel or something, and then you can talk to them about the pieces or about your instruments, a little bit of interaction. If you're in a normal, like massive church, let's say, and you've got hundreds of people, you can't really see the people at the back. I'm not going to start yelling without a microphone to someone at the back of the audience and then try to sing afterwards. Just, they're not even going to hear me. There's no point.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to have a little bit of that warmth and interaction and personality, the personal connection, which is so important in live streaming, that's why people sign up. No, that's why people come back. Is they start to get to know the performer, and part of that is really helped by having a chat. And you can do that if it's you in a room with a microphone,
Mm-hmm.
and then everyone is only as far away as your computer screen, and they can all interact closely with you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another benefit. So I'm convincing myself that this is a good transition now.
I had one more question for you, Grace, and I've forgotten it.
That's
Um,
fascinating.
if you're watching, don't forget to make a comment. If you have a question for us now, we can answer it live.
Ooh.
But otherwise, it's just my forgetful nature which is driving things forward.
Now you need one of those voice commands where tumbleweeds just roll across the
I,
screen.
I got a specific request for that for the tumbleweed to fly over, and I can't get the thing is that you either play a video or you have a GIF which is
Hmm.
transparent, and the only transparent GIFs looks as if they were made in 1996 on MS Paint. Like they're
Oh, but that's
super
awesome.
pixelated. And you wouldn't even know. Half the time I'd be like tumble. I'd have to use the word
Yeah, you'd have
tumbleweed.
to awkwardly say. That would make it even more tumbleweeds.
Yeah,
That would be amazing.
yeah.
If there's a silence and then someone's like, tumbleweeds.
uh,
I'd love it.
yeah, I'm not sure.
By next week, I want this integrated.
Yes, I'll make sure to put one single voice command in for this stream. Actually, I don't think that would be particularly nice to our guest.
Yes, we won't need it anyway.
Exactly. I would hate for that to be the one thing, and then we do have a guest, and then oh, they're never coming back. So what I will do at this point is I'll just go to the website, and if wait, okay, now you have to confirm this with me, Grace. Can you see my screen?
I can see two
Oh
hunks
yeah.
standing in front of a silo or something.
That's right. So here's our website, Surviving Classical Music. If you guys are not up
And
to
all of your
date
tabs.
with, yes, and all of the tabs. If you're not up to date, hey, look, this is us live stream. We can watch us. Whoa, it's in. Oh my goodness, it's like one of those paintings where they're painting themselves. Okay. Um, in any case, don't forget to check out the Phosphines project with Johanna Bartz and Ava Leone Fagers. They're publishing stuff pretty regularly. Look, here we go. We got another one last week, and I think they have another one coming next week. This episode will be up after. Oh, you know what? It didn't publish yet. We have one that's just published. There'll be another one, a kind of cut audio version of our live stream now, which will be published later on this week. And then next week, we have another live stream on the 30th of March.
We are still in March.
That's right. And by then, our clocks will have changed. So one of the problems at the moment is that North America have changed their clocks, but we haven't. So there's only a 5-hour difference between us and the Eastern time zone. On the 30th, there'll be a 6-hour difference. So as usual, and so anybody who's on Pacific, they'll be 9 hours back, whereas right now they're only 8 hours back. Yeah. So just so you know, if you want to watch the live stream, if you're in the States, you're gonna have to watch it another time. You're gonna have to watch it later, because it'll be too early. So let's go back to us. This is just you and me now, right?
It is.
Okay, great. So in any case, thanks very much for watching. Grace, thank you very much for joining me today.
A pleasure.
Excellent. Namaste. And yeah, we will be talking soon on the podcast. Thanks very much for listening, and have a great week.
See you soon.
Bye. Did it end? It ended.